very clear that yes, whatever we set up in denim, it has to be paved on all the steps of sustainability, and that's how we are going to take it forward. Sustainable is the way to go forward, and that the entire business needs to see that kind of transformation in terms of the challenges that this segment is going to face when it comes down to ethically sourced products, or in terms of best manufacturing practices, or in terms of conservation of energy, or in terms of conservation of water. None of this seemed to be in the bandwidth of people.
Designing a product and the impact of sustainability onto that product, it is a basically three-pronged approach, wherein we have to focus on the right or maybe sustainable raw material, the right chemistry. Apart from this, the manufacturing impact, which also has to be taken care of, and the packaging and the other design. In terms of our strategy, the raw material, the process engineering, and the output of the product plays a very key important in the sustainable practices.
The consumer buying pattern itself is now changed. Now it is all quality over quantity.
So the waste management for us is divided into two categories. One is the hazardous waste process waste, which is being segregated, and one is the non-hazardous waste. These non-hazardous waste is being carried by the recyclers, but we are working with further recyclers who can give us a proper chain or traceability of our waste, of the use that they can be put into.
When the garment gets made, there are things like I cannot give maybe 10 buttons in a shirt. If I can reduce it to say 6, that is also saving on the environment. That also, and even in terms of stitching, is there any particular part that can be modified into, having lesser SMVs, lesser minute values of the product. So those kind of things also directly or indirectly impact the environment, plus costing. There are a lot of things. So yes, we try to consciously do that at our end in the design team, but then having said that, designing a product from scratch in itself is not sustainable. Taking something from the environment and making it, there is definitely going to be a harm. So that is what we keep in mind. We have to make it lesser and lesser impactful for the environment. Be fair on our part and educate them of how the product can be made into a sustainable product.
So during design, we should select a design or develop a design requiring very low manufacturing technique. So the person who is designing should be considering these two things. One is the impact from the raw material sources, the other one is the manufacturing sources. How we can reduce the resource consumption, especially water and the chemical, and the other way in the material side. How we can reduce the impact by reducing the transportation, and how we can source the organic recycled content. Reduce the processes, for example, extra angle shape, separate patch fixed on the back side, and some attachments on the hand. These kind of things will be there. This will be requiring more manpower, more resources and material.
From a design aspect, I think for me, sustainable product should be transparent enough. So when I say transparency, there should be transparency to the customer, where he or she should know from how and from where the product has emerged. How cool people think that by using these terms that we are circular and we are sustainable. The myths and the trends which kind of people follow, that we are circular, but do they really mean they are circular? We are sustainable, but are they really sustainable? How sustainable have you been in terms of using the resources around you? In terms of small things like maybe light, fan, energy, which you are using. I mean, the list can be endless, but I think for me, a truly sustainable product would be how it has emerged and how the longevity of that product how as a designer have you made an impact to the longevity of that product? That once the customer is using it, can I use it for a long period of time? Can I mix and match? Can I use it for a very long period of time? So as a designer, have I been able to make that contribution to my design, which I call it sustainable?
I started this store 2 years ago, which is again only using what I had already, some old cupboards and some old chairs and some old my daughter's cradle to hang all my pants in, doors and windows, and so I just reused them all. Just made light colors. I made the room full of really light, bright colors. I opened all the doors, put in glass, because this was a really dingy old storeroom. I just made it bright and cheerful to work in. My favorite textured fabrics is block printing. Printers come in from Kutch and we meet them at a couple of exhibitions here in Bangalore. I always buy their geometric prints. So I make a jacket with a print this side, plain this side, but the inside I line with an old silk sari. So it's really soft on your skin. They cut up their old saris, their old blouses, and they just make these beautiful patchwork quilts to give their daughters for their dowry. We have had our tailors for 27 years, and they're 3 wonderful old men who have stuck with us right through, and we've stuck with them.
The sustainable practice has been adopted by many designers, but most of their understanding is that either upcycling or you can say these are eco-friendly products. You don't need any kind of technology or investment to make any kind of material. What you need is basically a good thought process that you can convert into a product. What I realized that this doesn't require a huge skills to develop. It is like a clay material. You can say that one more alternative of the clay. That can be utilized in a better way. Clay has certain properties that it is easily breakable, but whereas this material is not. Most of the material what we use in making the paper mache in India is almost everything is biodegradable and naturally available. For example, adhesive is nothing but that your neda, which is your flour, right? And similarly, we use the insecticide, which is white vitriol and alum, we call it. This material has certain properties. First of all, it is very lightweight. And the second thing is it absorbs moisture very quickly. And the third thing is that it is little uneven in terms of the surface. That creates interesting textures, in fact. Consistency of the product. So how can I upscale it? By utilizing similar material which is available in the surroundings and can be upscaled into the next level, that we can make product which can be mass produced. For example, you can create wall tile for visual appearance, right? That can be created. You can create the false ceiling using this material. So I'm thinking that, so the material which can be used along with the paper mache is the sawdust and the fabric waste, which is produced in large scale in Indian textile industries.
In NIFT, we have realized that sustainability is a very, very important part and is a need of the hour. In Masters, for Master of Design, it's a core, and the technology students also look at the garmenting and the production part and how the production can be made more sustainable. So we make the students aware that when you are designing, you have to be fully aware of the material, the raw material you are using, the seams and the accessorizations that you're using. For example, I would like to say there are designers who work with an organic fabric, organic cotton fabric. They might dye it even with a natural dye. Not being aware that a natural dyeing process also involves a lot of chemicals as moderns, whether it's ferrous sulfate, aluminium sulfate, copper sulfate, which is, if it's not treated and done in a cluster, again goes and impacts the environment. So we ask them to look into the raw material, to look into the process of designing. Are you going to do a zero waste design? What kind of a zero waste design you should do? The youth will go for it. How are you adding some aspects of emotional design that they will not discard it very soon, but they will try to retain it and hold closer to it. Right now, our focus is to make them aware that you need to look at the whole system. So we have integrated systems thinking. Very, very important for us to see that, where exactly is the problem, and then target on that and try to encourage our students, make them understand that this is the point where we need to think how we can take more decisions which will add on to the sustainability in fashion. I think the first thing I would say is we should produce less. Students need to be very, very well aware, because they will be the policy makers and they have to come out with a policy. So we want them to look at the whole system and map a system and understand where is the problem. So if it comes to fashion clothing, right now we see one of the bottlenecks that we have is post-consumer. And still now in India, the brands have not opened up, free refurbishing, free mending, or buyback policy and give us gift coupons. I think that is what India needs right now. And it's not just putting it back once into the loop. What next?
I as a designer should not just design, but I should be a vogue designer and I should take care of the whole process.
The need of the art today is very different, the need of the tomorrow will be very different.
The shelf life of it is just 5 years, but the Teflon coating has the potential of living in this earth for millions.
Major part of the design process is considering use cases and trying to narrow your scopes.
So I think it's very important for designers to consider not just the shelf life, but how it's going to end. It was on sanitary pads, and we did a thorough research and we just understood how it works. We broke down the product and what are the stakeholders who are involved, and we kind of did a system study where we thought we could come back to the roots using waste from banana trees or maybe other agricultural waste.
It's not just been about how to do system thinking, but also what your reaction would be when you go out into the real world and try to apply systems thinking.
So in digital era, our designers have to think of all the consequences which can be effect in the future. Can be personality change, heft.
We have to be more aware and responsible and woke about what we're creating. Impact is felt completely only if the consumers understand it. There would be no point if the designer has something in mind in developing a system and the consumer who's using it has no idea about it. So it's not seen, but it's felt. It's actually the start of everything.
But making sure that the whole life cycle, each and every aspect of it, if it is labor or other practices, have the right proportion.
Some of them are also working on heat stickers on the garment itself. So these are wash care labels you can't take off. So they are educating people to this way. So this is a good move in today's world to educate.
We need to transform ourselves. We need to find ways.
Zero wastage, everybody says zero wastage, but we know it is hard to, at least in our industry, it is hard right now, but at least we can aim to be there.
Sustainability takes the bigger seat.